The month of April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. This week's episode may be triggering for some listeners. We talk about statistics around sexual assault and conversations about consent. Like last year, we are selling Consent is My Kink merchandise and donating 100% of the profits to RAIN. You can find the link to our website in the description of this episode. Welcome to the Holy Hour.
I'm Amelia Sampson.
And I'm Liz Ball.
We're back to fucking up our intro. That's the third time. Third time's a charm.
We just go through phases.
We do.
Life's about balance.
That's true. That's true. That's why we fuck up. We can't be perfect all the time.
We have to humble ourselves because no one will do it for us.
Yeah, fucking right. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and we are selling merchandise that says Consent is My Kink and donating 100% of the profits to RAIN for the entire month of April. You can find our merch on our website, thehoelyhour.com. We're excited to share that it's the same design as last year, and now it's on more inclusive sizes, which is great. The design was created by our amazing friend Alora. Her Instagram handle is hellohysteria. If you want to look through who we're following on Instagram, you can find her easily through that. And we're just really excited to be doing this again. So
yeah, I think it's just like nice to have a dedicated conversation about this annually and continue raising money and donating to RAIN.
Yep, absolutely. They're doing amazing work.
That being said,
we're both like
it's nerve-wracking to talk about such a serious topic that even though it touches so many people and it's affected us, just 100% of the people in this room.
Yep.
Previously, we focused on a lot of our own experiences and shared just some examples of common things that we see aggressors say and do. And this time, I wanted to dive a little bit more into the statistics of things, as well as talk a little bit more in depth about consent itself and what consent entails specifically, because we hear consent a lot, and I don't know how often people go into researching like, okay, what is and is not consent? So I felt like it would be a good opportunity to talk more about it and share some of the things that we've researched.
Absolutely. And like men are like very underrepresented in this conversation. And I know a man who has been raped. And he's very open about it. He talks about it very publicly. But he always talks about how when he reported it, the cops laughed in his face about it. It's like, well, men can't get raped.
It's very likely that we know more than one man who has been assaulted in some way. And we'll talk more about it because I have all the statistics pulled up in front of us. So some of the sources that we used this time for our research are from RAIN, NSVRS, which is National Sexual Violence Resource Center, 1 in 6, Legal Jobs, and Planned Parenthood. So just starting off with some statistics, your chances of being attacked by a shark are 1 in 1,000, but your chances of being assaulted are 1 in 6, yet your fear of sharks is seen as reasonable. Every 93 seconds, a person is sexually assaulted in America. And then for every 1,000 rapes, only 5 people will be prosecuted.
Yep.
So, like, all right off the bat, those are some pretty shocking statistics, especially the, like, 5 out of every 1,000 people who are aggressors are held accountable for their actions.
I wonder how much of that is attributed to rape kits not being tested. I know that there's, like, a backlog of untested rape kits, and then how much of that is, like, the victim just being, like afraid in the end and just like being intimidated to step down, or how much of it is them actually like winning the case against these women, because there's like, I mean, and men, but like from our experience, these are all these cases that I know of, like Brock Turner that we talked about last year, like
oh, there are plenty of like horrendous cases with all of the evidence you could even think of, and they still walk away from it.
It's awful.
And like of 1,000, those are just the people who come forward and report it.
Yeah.
So looking more into the statistics, for women, 1 in 5 women are victims of completed or attempted rape. Women, especially women of color, queer identified people, and people with disabilities are more likely to experience sexual assault over the course of their lifetimes.
It's important to call out. I saw somebody say the conversation around like rape and assault, and well, I mean, we're going to be talking about this the whole episode, but the shark thing made me think of it. Like, there's some men in my comments whenever I'm like talking about a woman feeling like, you know, scared to like go on dates with men because I don't know, and they're like, well, I haven't done anything.
Like, congratulations. Do you want a gold medal?
Right. It's like you being offended by
it's like
our
awards
fear.
for good boys.
Yeah. But like I heard the metaphor, or I guess it's a simile if we're getting technical. It's like if like we're afraid of bees or like wasps, but like we haven't been stung by every wasp. But if you see a wasp, you're gonna be like, I'm not getting near that wasp, because you don't know, you know?
I've seen so many comparisons that, like, you know, when an animal is abused by men, that animal hates men. So why would you not expect the same thing from women?
Yeah. And a lot of men that I know, like in the comments too, when men are like, well, but not me, a lot of men are like, okay, cool, like then you should be like a good ally and like help these people feel safe. Like, shut the fuck up. Why are you offended by this if you have nothing to be offended? Like, this isn't about you.
If it's not about you, you shouldn't be offended. And if you are offended, then you should take a deeper look at that and think about, why are you offended?
Let's pull that apart.
And that's nice that there are other men who are saying like, okay, if it's not you, then be a good ally.
Yeah.
Because I think that like people know when you're not talking about them. I've said this before too. It's like when you say I love sushi, you don't mean that you love the sushi from the gas station.
Yeah.
So that's just the same thing in my eyes. Like,
yeah. I just don't like.
Are you gas station sushi? Because if you're not, you shouldn't be worried.
That's such a good comparison. It's so true.
So some other statistics all up are only 2% of assault that actually gets reported has been proven to be fake. So of all of the assault that is reported, only 2% are fake. And we see a lot of people who are like, well, I'm afraid. What if a girl, me too's me? Like, well, you shouldn't even be worried about that. And also only 2% of all of the assault that is actually reported is fake. And I'm not defending those either.
No, it's fucked.
Never would. I think that like reporting fake assault is so harmful. It's so harmful to survivors, and it invalidates people who have actually been assaulted and are trying to like have their assailants held accountable. And I think, I don't know, maybe I'm an asshole, but I think people who report fake assault should be given the punishment that
100%
that their assailant would have been given.
Yeah.
Which I suppose in this case is none. But
yeah, right.
But I do think that it's super harmful, and then you're ruining someone's life. So
yeah,
I think that people reporting fake crimes should also have to deal with consequences.
I completely agree. You're ruining people's lives, and on a larger scale, you're like,
it's also a waste of resources.
Yeah, and you're just kind of like poisoning the water of like this huge issue where like every time somebody reports a fake assault, that gives somebody a reason to then not believe actual victims of assault. Period. It's like, get attention a different way. You know what I mean? Like, I know that people are hungry for attention, but like there are just so many other ways that don't like harm people in the process.
Yeah, just you could sell your farts on the internet. That gains a lot of attention.
It does,
from what I've seen.
Yeah, bathwater.
Gamer girl bathwater.
Yeah, gamer girl what's her name? Belle Devine. Is that her name?
I think it's Belle. I don't know her last name. I can't remember. I can picture her little face.
She's a gazillionaire. That's a good way to get.
Yeah.
Anyway, anything but this.
People ages 14 to 17 are the largest age group of victims. People with disabilities face twice the risk of being assaulted, and it happens the most in care facilities. I actually recently saw, it was an article, I believe, about, like, it was an experimental type of way of communicating for someone who was completely paralyzed. They could only move their eyes, I think, and they attached something to his like head, and they used his brain waves to control like how he could communicate.
It's fucking dope.
And it was effective, and he was like communicating full complete sentences and to his son. So like when people say someone is in a vegetative state, they might not be. Mm-hmm. So when these people are getting assaulted, they could be completely aware of what's going on. And that's atrocious to think of.
How fucking sick do you have to be?
Yeah.
To assault somebody because they can't defend themselves?
Do you remember when a few years ago in Arizona, someone was in a care facility and she started giving birth?
What the fuck?
Yeah. She had been in like a vegetative state, like paralyzed. And someone was like raping her while she was in this care facility.
What the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna get into this with consent, but I think about a lot, like what is so, why? Just like I don't go on Tinder, get a flashlight, hook up with like somebody that like a sex worker, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. The sad thing is like in care facilities, families are just like trusting you to care for the person that they love so much. And it's like the ultimate betrayal of trust. And then especially when it comes to like rape and assault, it's not about sexual pleasure. It is about control and dominating another person. It's not sexually satisfactory. It has a completely other appeal that a normal person can't comprehend. A normal person would like go play a sport or something. Yeah. And so some other statistics, trans folks have a 5% higher rate of being assaulted. And that statistic was specified on like college campuses. So I don't know what that statistic looks like nationally or internationally. But that was the closest one I could find. And 20,000 assaults were reported in the military just last year. The annual cost as a result of assault is $450 billion. So the things that feed into that are obviously like all of the police and the hospital bills that are involved, and the mental anguish that it causes people, and if it affects them so much that they're unable to perform at work. There's just like a huge loss for everyone involved when it comes to the annual cost of like looking into not just mental health and the things it affects. It just spreads, and it's insane to see how much it touches, especially to the point where it is costing billions of dollars. And then it's never a victim's fault when they are sexually abused. Believe it or not, it's never their fault.
And that's a common thing too. And that's probably attributes to why only, what was the number, 5 in 1,000 get prosecuted. That might be, a part of that number is that people are made to feel like it's their fault.
It should never be someone's fault that they are assaulted. It is an aggressor's fault. It is always going to be their fault. It is never a victim's fault that they were assaulted. It doesn't matter if you were drinking too much. It doesn't matter what you were wearing. It doesn't matter if you had consented earlier in the night and you fell asleep. And we'll get more into consent. But I also wanted to share some statistics about men specifically. And these are statistics. There's something called 1 in 6. And it's to specifically raise awareness that 1 in 6 men have been sexually assaulted. So it's 1in6.org. I definitely recommend checking it out. It's very informative. And some of it, all of this is hard to digest and read.
Yeah.
But 1 out of every 33 men are victims of attempted or complete rape. 1 out of every 10 rape victims are men. So of every 10 people, one of them who has been assaulted is a man.
Wild.
This number is actually much higher because men are less likely to report their assault because they're not believed, or it's minimized because they are men.
Yep, I was just about to say that too. It's like the numbers, we don't actually know.
No.
I mean, we don't really know any of these numbers, but men even more so don't feel like justified in bringing these things up. So these numbers.
There's also some really interesting statistics in like if men are aware that they've been assaulted, they like won't admit it to themselves. Versus women. Women are more likely to be like, I was touched inappropriately, whereas a man will be like, I'm not going to think about this.
Yep.
So 1 in 6 men have been sexually assaulted. Only 16% of men with documented histories of sexual abuse by social services agents, which means it was very serious, considered themselves to have been sexually abused, compared to 64% of women with documented histories in the same study. So that's what I was mentioning. So when they have been sexually abused, they don't consider themselves as having been sexually abused. And I think it's because it's hard to process, like, this thing happened to me.
I think part of it too might be that we're taught about assault our entire lives. It's like really like thrown in our face, like, this is assault, this is how you like avoid it, this is how you stay safe, So we're much more keen of like paying attention to what assault might be, whereas men aren't fed that same information because their assaults aren't taken as seriously. So it's like maybe they just aren't as like, they don't understand how many things can count as assault. It's like if they get like their dick grabbed at a bar, you know,
that's assault.
But like it's kind of like, oh dude, this like girl like grabbed my dick at a bar, you know. It's like, okay, haha, that's kind of crazy, dude. It's like they aren't fed the information that we're fed about how to keep ourselves safe. Which is sad because so many of them are getting assaulted and just either not realizing it or not feeling comfortable enough to share it. And I wonder if that has to do with the education around it.
I also think like something, you know, like if someone grabs your dick or your butt at the bar and you're like, damn, that's crazy. I think that's also an okay response if that's how you feel like you want to respond. Right. Just as long as you are aware that that is assault.
Totally. Yeah, because, you don't need to, like...
I've had my ass grabbed at a bar.
Me too. And I'm just like, don't fucking touch me.
Exactly. You're like, do you mind?
Yeah, that's assault and I'm not going to report it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, hey, just mind your own business before I spit in your face.
Yep.
When I was looking at the 1 in 6 website, there were all of these little different, like, things you can click on, like, more information you can learn. And some of it was, like, so obvious to me, but it was kind of upsetting and shocking that these needed to be explained to people. But I think it's worth talking about. People believe that it was his fault. It was a man's fault he was assaulted. I mean, people believe that about anyone who is assaulted, unfortunately. And then a lot of people will believe that a man is lucky if he's assaulted by a woman.
So fucked up.
We were recently talking about teachers, like female teachers who have assaulted their male students. And like, if women are attractive and someone like an underage boy is her student, people are like, nice one, buddy, but that's still assault. Like,
yeah,
this child doesn't have like a fully developed brain and you're in a position of power and you're abusing it and you're taking advantage of these children, regardless of like if you're attractive or not, or if they're consenting or not. I would say the same thing in any scenario.
Nope, completely agree. I'm just thinking about like why, outside of like the obvious that we've talked about, like why this may be the case, like he's lucky if he was assaulted, like just that sentence alone is fucking absurd.
Yeah, like oh, you're lucky that this woman wanted to have sex with you.
Yeah, but
or like if you pass out and you wake up to like a woman riding you, it's not sexy. It's not okay.
Yeah, and maybe like that goes back to like how we talk a lot about how like men historically don't have the same community to talk about shit as women do, like about like their feelings and stuff. And like maybe like a big part of that is assault. It's like, yeah, I woke up and this girl was like riding me. It's like, I don't know how male friendships work, but like if I'm like picturing like a frat in my head, like a stereotypical frat, it's just like, whoa, man, like what the like that must have been fucking dope. Yeah, Whereas, like, if it's the other way around and a woman, like someone in a sorority is telling one of their friends that this happened, it's like, that's so fucked. And it's like, I don't know if it's like a power dynamic difference or what. Like, what makes it, like, when a man is saying it, it's like a high five moment. There has to be something, like a deep psychological something going on there that has, like, it's like rooted in like years, like hundreds and thousands of years.
I also think there's not enough education there's not enough crossover in education. Like, women are always taught what assault is.
Yes.
Whereas men are not, but also like women are taught what it looks like when it's happening to them. But they're not considering, like, because men are typically going to be larger than you and can overpower you. And we live in a male-dominated society. So living in a patriarchy, you would just assume that a man will overpower you or stop you if he doesn't want to have sex with you. And there's also this toxic conversation that men always want sex. Yeah. And they only want sex. And that's not true.
Yeah.
And I think just all of that combined leads to men being assaulted and not knowing what to do, not having the resources, not having the education. And it goes both ways with, like, women not thinking what they're doing is considered assault. Like, even when we were talking about that author who wrote in about the woman who was like, sorry for making you have sex with me. That's really towing the line of, like, what consent is.
Yeah.
Like, by trying to pressure someone and make them feel bad. Like, that's, I don't know. Yeah. It's really dangerous territory.
It's removing their agency to, like, make decisions for their own body.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Another misconception or awful assumption people have is that only gay men assault men, and that if you are assaulted, it makes you gay. That's not how sexuality works. So we'll just get that out of the way right there. But it's definitely not true, because gay men do not assault men. People who are predators assault men. Yep. And like we had already said, it's not about sexual gratification. It is about domination and control. And taking control away from another person.
It's just like a very homophobic line of thinking. Like, when Kevin Spacey got outed as being a predator, and then he used that opportunity to come out.
Oh, yeah. He's like, and actually, I'm gay. And then everyone's like, fuck you, you're still a predator.
And, like, that's
he thought he would get away with it.
It's the worst time to come out, because it's like you're perpetuating this stereotype that homophobes have, that gay men are predators. And, like, trans people are only trans so they can go in the other bathroom. And it's like, no, that's not the fucking case. And it doesn't make any fucking sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's a stupid argument, and they use it over and over and over again. So I'm glad that you wrote that down as a false thing, because it's obvious to people that aren't bigots. And it sucks that it's still worth saying. It's still worth saying, because there are so many people that believe that.
And then another false belief people have is that survivors will abuse others. And that is also not the case.
No. I didn't know that people thought that.
Yeah, I think they specifically believe it with men. If a man is a survivor of assault, that he's going to go on and assault other people. So that's a misconception.
The men that I know that have been assaulted, specifically the man that I know who has been raped, they're such loud careful advocates too. They're really good allies for women. They're very, very careful. They educate about consent. They, like, that's the complete opposite of that. So I didn't realize that was a belief that people held.
Yeah, they're out there advocating for all of us and consent. Let's talk about some things that are required for consent. So things that demand consent that aren't just like, do you want to have sex? Yes or no? Just check the box. It's more complicated than that. Yep. So some things that you need to disclose to your partner to get full consent is when your most recent STD, STI screening is and what the results were. Especially if they ask. If they ask, don't lie, first of all. Yep. Just say, like, it's been a while and it came back negative, or all of them came back negative. Just don't lie, because you want to have autonomy over your own body. You want to decide what you're going to do with it. And if someone is lying to you, it's really violating. And
yes, because you're agreeing to something that you don't have all of the information about.
Exactly.
That's horrible.
And if someone is going to make you, if you have an STD or an STI, and someone's going to make you feel bad about that, that's not someone you want to have sex with anyways.
Yep,
Fuck them.
true.
So if they ask, and you should just volunteer this information, you should open the conversation regardless of, because if you're going to be having sex, those are very important things to know.
Yep.
And it's not a shameful topic. Just,
no.
Everyone's had something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're using protection, removing the condom without telling your partner, that is rape.
Yep.
That's if you have agreed to have protected sex and you sneak off and remove the condom, that is not consent, and that is rape.
Mm-hmm.
If you have other sexual partners, especially if you are having unprotected sex with multiple people, you need to disclose that.
This has been like a big, it's not really a thing anymore, but were you following this Lance Sosi and Chelsea Hart thing?
You were sort of telling me about it, but I was not keeping up with it.
It's gotten messy, and like there's like a lot that we don't, this would take up a whole episode if we described the whole thing, but the whole issue was that Lance and Chelsea were having unprotected sex, and according to Chelsea, Lance wasn't disclosing that he had other sexual partners, and like now she has to get an STD test and da-da-da-da-da, and like everyone was like, there were like a lot of like white woman tears involved. Like that was a big part of the conversation. It's a very, very like, it runs deep, this whole conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fucked up to not disclose that to the person that you're having sex with.
Yeah.
That removes the consent. A lot of people were against Chelsea in this argument for a lot of reasons, but I think if she's right about anything, it's that. Like, that's fucked up.
Absolutely. Well, and it's because it's a safety precaution. It's not like I want to be the only one, or I want to know how many partners you have. I feel like you could also, you don't have to disclose if you have like how many other sexual partners you have, but if you have multiple, because we're all out here dating multiple people.
Yep.
Yeah. Until you find someone that you want to be in a monogamous relationship with, if you want to be in a monogamous relationship, like I think it's perfectly acceptable to say that.
Yep.
And also, if you're not having sex with other people, like that's okay too. You don't need to be fucking everyone.
Yep.
So I think it's really important to just disclose if and when you have more than one sexual partner. Mm-hmm. Or even if you're planning on having multiple sexual partners. Yeah. Like as long as that is known, then everyone has the knowledge that they need to make the decision that they want to make with their own body. Mm-hmm. And even if they say yes, but they seem hesitant, that is not consent.
Yep.
And I wrote, put your blue balls and blue labias aside.
I saw that when you were just talking and I was trying not to laugh. I love that. I talked about this on, I think it was episode 5, like way back when, about my experience with...
we were calling it gray area consent because he kept making you feel guilty and like pressuring you and pushing you and making it like, well, you can leave whenever you want, but like...
Yeah, I was like, please,
you're a
come on.
fucking pussy if you don't fuck me.
Yeah, he would like be like trying to take off my clothes and I'd be like, no, and then he would be like, okay, and he'd pull back and then he would try again, and then like he kept asking if he's like, I just got tested for STDs, I don't want to use a condom. I'm like, bitch, I don't want to be fucking doing this anyway. But like you get worn down, and yeah, I said yes at the end, and that's why I felt like it wasn't non-consensual until we were recording that episode, was like really when I realized like I didn't consent to that.
You don't think about it until you're talking about it out loud.
I'm like, I didn't say yes.
You're like, well, technically I consented, but at first you said no, and no does not mean convince me.
Yeah.
So if the answer you get is no, just take it as no.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be a dick about it, you don't deserve to sleep with anyone.
Yep. Amen.
You deserve to be alone with your fleshlight.
Yeah.
Or vibrator or whatever sex toy you may or may not use.
Mm-hmm. You know what's interesting about consent? I just want to interject this. There's we've talked a lot in the past about how like porn gives like people the false like impression of how sex goes. I found this porn channel called the porn star method. Have you heard of this? It's like porn stars teaching people how to have sex, like how to have like good sex, and there's a huge emphasis on consent, and it's like a really, really fascinating thing.
Interesting.
Watching porn stars who like peddle out this information of like, you know, like forcing this person to have sex and like against their will and da-da-da, and like they'll do things like when they're like getting to the part of like giving someone head, like the person that's talking to the camera will be like, never ever push her head down, like she will let you know if she wants to give you head. You ask her, you know. It's like it was just interesting to watch like this industry that perpetuates this idea, be like, okay, we're like really responsible for a lot of shit that's really, really fucked up. Here's like when people are trying to learn how to have sex through porn, like let's teach them how to do it in a respectful way.
Yeah.
And I think that that's fucking dope.
Yeah,
like,
I love that.
It's really incredible. Anyway, it's called the porn star method.
It's amazing that porn stars are the biggest advocates for consent and safe sex. Porn stars are out here getting tested like multiple times a week. So if they can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, I don't want to hear your fucking excuses.
First of all, I got this from Planned Parenthood. It's called FRIES, so consent and fries. FRIES is an acronym, and it stands for freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. So we'll walk through each one. So freely given means it's a choice you make without pressure, manipulation, or under the influence of drugs and alcohol. So that's something you need to be extremely careful about with drugs and alcohol. Like, you know, I've had sex when I've been drunk or high, and I still stand by consenting to those, but if you're sleeping with a partner, like if it's your first time hooking up with someone, it's better to not. It doesn't matter if you're both drunk, if one of you is drunk and the other isn't, like your inhibitions have been lowered. So I've stopped people when I've been intoxicated because I'm like, I really like you and I want to like be sober and coherent for this. And then they don't want to talk to me after that. That's when I was in college.
Red flag.
Yeah. Dodged a bullet.
No kidding.
And where was I? Reversible. So anyone can change their mind about what they feel like doing at any time. So even if you have hooked up before or you're both naked in bed, they can change their mind. Yeah. You can change your mind. Anyone is allowed to reverse what they originally said. So have that Uno card tucked in your butthole and pull it out when you want to stop. That's just a fun little tip from me.
Oh my God. I'm always so surprised at what comes out of your mouth.
Me too.
I love it.
I don't know what I'm saying until it just comes out.
It's a ride for everyone, and I fucking appreciate it.
Informed, so that means you can only consent to something if you have the full story, which is what we just talked about, having all of the information. That is informed consent. You need informed consent. So for example, if someone says they'll use a condom and then they don't, that is not full consent.
Or if someone says they're only sleeping with you and they have a bunch of people that they're having sex with and you're having unprotected sex, that's not informed.
That is not informed consent. Enthusiastic. So when it comes to sex, you should only do stuff you want to do, not things you feel like you're expected to do. And then specific. So saying yes to one thing, like going to the bedroom to make out, doesn't mean you said yes to other things like having sex.
I've struggled with ENS in the past a lot. Like to feel like I'm like expected to do XYZ, even if I'm uncomfortable with it. It's like, well, I'm already doing this, so like here we go. And then also like, you know, whenever
so many of us have been in that position where you're like, this is what is supposed to happen.
Yeah, and that's the same with specific. It's like I would want to like not make out with someone that I was dating because I was worried that it was going to turn into sex and I wasn't in the mood. And I would always end up having sex, like, because it's like, oh, well, fuck. It's like I was leading them on, I guess. Like I was like,
yeah, by
kissing them.
And side note, like I was recently telling Mr. Liz this. I love so much that we can have physical intimacy and there's never an expectation to have sex. It feels so good, you guys, to just like be able to make out and then neither of us are like, this is because we're gonna have sex later. Like we're constantly like snuggling and hugging and kissing and holding hands, and it's just nice to have like physical touch and intimacy without any sexual expectations, because I think we need to like know that those are separate things.
Yeah.
You can have intimacy and romance without sex.
Yep.
And you can have sex with intimacy and romance as well, but they shouldn't coincide. They shouldn't go hand in hand all the time.
Yeah.
Like, if that makes sense.
Totally.
Like, if you want to have romantic sex, cool.
You can have one without the other.
Yeah.
Yep.
What else do I have? Consent is never implied by things like if you've hooked up before, your past behavior, what you wear, or where you go. Silence is not consent. Sexual consent is always clearly communicated. You need consent every time you have sex, not just the first time. So I think a lot of people get confused, like when you have a partner, that you don't need to get consent every time.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're in an exclusive relationship with someone, they're just assuming consent is implied, and it's not.
No. It
needs to be a conversation. And if you don't want to have sex with your partner during that time, you can say no, and you're allowed to say no.
That's something that I've tried to get into the habit of doing, is like whenever I'm like dating someone for a while and I'm like, we should have sex, you know, like I'll be like, are you in the mood to have sex right now? And like a lot of the time they're like, yeah, but it's like I'm now in this habit where I don't feel right unless I ask, because it's like I know I've been in the position before where things have gotten like into motion, and like I've been like, I don't really want to be doing this, but like, all right, like the wheels are in motion, and like if somebody would just stop and just ask and just be like, are you in the mood to do this? I'd be like, no, I am not, you know. And that's hard to say, that's difficult to say, but like being asked, it's not just implied because it's the ball's rolling.
Yeah.
It's not implied because you've had sex before. It's just never implied. Just always communicate.
It's so nice to have a conversation too.
Yeah.
Just beforehand. I don't know.
There's nothing sexier than
like,
communication.
At this point, I haven't, in almost 2 years, I haven't had sex where we haven't already discussed it. And even when we have discussed it, when it gets down to it, we're like, if you don't, how are you feeling?
Mm-hmm.
Doing a nice little check-in just to see, like, are you still, like, are you in the mood to be in the mood?
Mm-hmm.
If not, we can reschedule. Yeah. Take a little rain check.
Uh-huh.
And you should, honestly, you should also consider, like, being in a relationship with someone where you're okay with that happening. Like, oh, I'm okay if we just hang out because I care about you and I like your company.
Yeah, totally. Non-sexual intimacy, and there's a little board on our Discord about non-sexual intimacy, which it's always popping too. And that was something that I had never thought about before until we discussed it on an episode. But there's nothing sexier to me than non-sexual intimacy.
Yeah, it feels nice and safe.
Yes, it feels safe. You're connecting on a different level, and like
everyone deserves to feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, like, you know, in a lot of ways we're fed that like the only way to be like sexual is to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just not the case.
Totally. And we'll top it off with some ways to talk about consent. So, you know, we talk about consent, but we don't talk, like, how often have you heard someone give you the language to use to ask for someone's consent? Because it kind of is awkward, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not like what we're all presented to with like this sexy romantic idea of like it just happens.
Yeah,
and
right.
That's not always the case.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're both not in that same headspace or that mood. So some ways to talk about consent are just saying like, is this okay? What are your boundaries? So I think that's like, like, oh, I don't want to do XYZ, or like I have been assaulted and like this is triggering for me. So just knowing what someone's boundaries are. Do you want to try blank? Can I kiss you? We've talked about this too. Like, can I kiss you? That's a good question, and I like being asked it.
Me too.
And does this feel good? There are sexier ways to ask that too.
Do you like that?
No, but really, do you like it?
Yeah. Are you?
If you don't like it, we can stop.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I'm serious.
Or you could just say like, like you can ask in advance, like what feels good.
Yeah.
Like, what do you like the most?
I love having those conversations.
Yeah, it's fun. It's sexy.
It really is.
Honestly, the sexiest things are things leading up to sex.
Word.
So, and a lot of those conversations involve consent, things that are consensual. So,
yep.
Get sexy with your consent.
And that also...
That's why consent is our kink.
A lot of... Fuck yeah. A lot of that, too, is, like, being comfortable in voicing what actually makes you uncomfortable, because that is uncomfortable to have those conversations. Mm-hmm. So it's, like, once you get in the habit of, like, being able to communicate, because I, for a while, had a really hard time saying no to shit that I didn't want to do, because I was like, well, I don't want them to think... I don't want to, like, throw off the flow.
It almost feels like that's just, like, part of being a young adult, is you feel uncomfortable talking about your boundaries.
Yeah.
And we're here to empower you.
Boundaries are my kink.
At every age. I'm always surprised when, like, we have younger listeners. Mm-hmm. If you're underage,
don't. A big thing that I think falls under this category that I don't think we've ever talked about is revenge porn. Mm-hmm. And I was watching this video. I go on these, like, at night, my deep dives of, like, different topics. And I got onto...
What videos are you watching at night, Amelia?
Girl, it's always something. It was about the Challenger explosion a few nights ago. Again. Anyway, I always get onto these deep dives. But this one night I was watching, like, a dark web iceberg.
Oh, interesting.
And what was on, like, the, you know, like, way bottom of the iceberg was this site called Pink Meth, which has since been shut down. But it's this revenge porn site that was particularly nefarious. Not that, you know, one is worse than the other, but this one sucked because in order for the victims to get their pictures taken down, they had to fill out a form and say, like, how these people got the pictures of them, but the form wouldn't actually do anything. It would just pump onto the website so people could laugh at these women that were trying to get their photos taken down.
What the fuck?
That was what the form was for. So it eventually got, there was a lawsuit against it, but, like, how these sites on the dark web are run is, like, their servers are protected, so you can't see where they're coming from, so you can't shut them down, and you can't, like, these people can't get in trouble because nobody knows who's behind them. Eventually, Pink Meth ended up shutting down, but kind of recently, the Pink Meth archive came up, and there were 206 women whose photos were made public that had the Pink Meth watermark on them. And nobody really knows where this came from. You know, like, nobody knows if, like, these are people that, like, took screenshots of, like, Pink Meth and now they're just, like, sharing a few pictures. But it's, like, it's a problem that you can't get in front of because these people have thought of everything. Like,
that's so much time and energy to be so cruel for literally no reason.
Yeah. They are, like, the archive is hosted on the same site where, like, remember that I forget what they were calling it, but, like, when all of those celebrities' nudes got leaked.
Oh.
Something gate? Porn gate?
Oh, yeah, I can't remember.
I don't know. It had some
I know
name.
what you're talking about, but I can't remember what it was called.
The archive is hosted on that same website, so that website's still up, and it's, like, being, like, shared around 4chan. You know how it goes. So, but revenge porn
People fucking suck.
Yeah, and it's illegal. Thank God there's been, like...
The bar is so low, and I'm always surprised just by how much people fucking suck.
Mm-hmm. It's been really, really interesting in this generation. And I know, again, I say this all the time that we're in, like, a very liberal area. But, like, when Jennifer Lawrence's nudes got leaked, she was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I had a long distance boyfriend and, like, I would rather him masturbate to me than to, like, some random woman on the internet. And it's like, people are like, oh, but, like, aren't you upset that and she's just like, I don't know, it's like a breach of privacy, but, like, who the fuck cares? And, like, I feel like,
yeah, people aren't sharing nudes because they're doing something, like, wrong or nefarious. They're in, most of the time, it's like a relationship.
Yeah. And it's also just, like, a decision they're making for their own bodies. So,
yeah,
like, to, like, take that agency away from them and to take that control away from them and share these images that they're choosing to share with, like, you know, a select few or one person. It's like people taking screenshots of people's OnlyFans and posting them on Reddit. It's like, they're doing this to make money, and that's how they're controlling this. That's how they're deciding what to do with their body. The second that you take a screenshot and post it elsewhere, that's fucked up.
Yeah, you owe them money.
Yeah, it's just like, you are not entitled to anybody's anything ever. And I think it's another power thing. Like,
yeah,
I think that it's the power thing, and what I was saying before is like the lack of consent is like hot to people that are like fucked up, and I would never call anyone mentally ill fucked up, but that's fucked up. Like, that's fucked. Like, to be turned on by the fact that you don't have permission from this person to be doing XYZ, like, get help.
Yeah.
That's disgusting. Which then brings me to a conversation that we've had in the past about
Nice. Amelia just caught a gnat right out of the air.
Oh my god, I'm like a fucking
I'm glad
interview.
You got it though. Because it was driving me nuts.
It's been driving me nuts for weeks. Sorry, little guy. PETA, don't come for me.
As long as you don't eat it.
Oh, okay.
Or wait until I leave.
All right. Okay. The CNC kink, the consent, non-consent thing that we've talked about in the past, about how there's like this idea of people wanting to have sex where there's like you're consenting to not consenting, and it allows a lot of people like a way to like I don't know how to word this, but like gain the control back of like not being in control in situations. It like it makes it more like palatable in a lot of ways. I know a lot of people have different kinks for different reasons, and it's not the same for everyone, but that's what I've heard from a few people that participate in CNC is like it makes those scary situations, it makes you feel like you're in control of them.
Well, because I mean, to circle back to the statistics, what is it? 1 in 3 people, 6 people?
Well, 1 in 6 men was the. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. 1 in 6 people. Yeah.
Are assaulted. So if you're trying to make a very real possibility in your head a little less scary, I guess. The consent non-consent kink makes sense, and also there is a lot of conversations that happen before that happens.
Absolutely. Yeah, that requires a lot of consent for it to work how it's supposed to, which makes it unique in that way of like it's role playing.
Yeah,
it really is what it is.
And the goal of this too is just to give you all of the information and tools that you need to decide what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. It's more so like we're giving you all the equipment and you can build whatever house you want. Communication is our kink. Yeah, truly.
Hell yeah. Should make phone cases. But yeah,
you have a story about
my
trainer.
Trainer? Yeah. I can't believe I haven't talked about this on the podcast.
I can't either.
Have I told you about this at all?
I don't think so.
Jesus, between like this and my professor.
I know. I almost said professor, but I think there's also just so many, like, we would rather talk about things that are exciting and
that's
fun.
So true. Yeah.
Because these are things that are like buried in the archives of our brains.
That's so fucking true.
I can't recall every time I've been assaulted,
God, that's so fucking sad.
So much has happened since then.
Yeah, so much life has been lived between assaults. Jesus, that's so sad and so true. But yeah, I make a lot of jokes about that I don't go to the gym. I used to go to the gym a lot. I had a trainer. I had a private trainer. It was always just me and him in the gym. I was lifting heavy twice a week, doing a lot of cardio before the pandemic, and we had a lot of rapport. Like, he was just kind of like a dude. I don't know.
Like a homie.
Yeah, and like it's his job to like be helping me work out. And like there was usually somebody else. I would always go late at night.
Because I've told you about my trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing.
I want to meet him. Change my mind
Amelia
about trainers.
wants to meet him.
Yeah, I do. My trainer, like, there was always, so it was a private gym. So it was like, it was a pretty small room, but it had all of the equipment in it, and it was just like one-on-one all the time. There was never anybody else working out in there, but there was usually somebody in the office. But because I would come late at night, they would usually leave halfway through my workout. But like, he was a homie, whatever. We would always be like talking about his girlfriend, so I never felt like intimidated.
Isn't it weird how you're like, oh, I'm with a safe person because they're dating another woman. So women are safe people.
Yep.
If this woman trusts a man,
I
then
can trust
he's
the man.
trustworthy.
It turns out no. now that I'm watching so much true crime, so many men with wives.
Yeah, are serial killers.
People. Yeah. But anyway. So the first time I started to kind of be like, what is up with this? Was he compared my body to his girlfriend's in a way that like was kind of borderline like, you know?
Like too complimenty.
Yeah, he was just like, he was like breaking down every piece of our body that's the same. He was like, well, like you should lift this way because like you're just like my girl, like you have the same body type as my girlfriend. That wasn't bad. I was like, oh,
yeah, that's normal.
But then he was like talking about like my ass and like her ass and like comparing them like very specifically, and like it was just like too much description for it to be like, okay, I got it when you first said it, I don't need the descriptors.
Yeah.
But even then I was like, whatever. So like as time went on, he would start asking me questions. Like I was filming Win a Trip to Browntown, the film that I talked about on here a few weeks back, and there's a scene in there where we go to a sex shop, and it was like we were like buying toys for the main character, and I was telling him that like that's what we did over the weekend, but I didn't give him any specifics. I was just like, yeah, we were like filming at a sex shop. And he was like, do you use toys when you're having sex? And I was like, oh, like I kind of laughed. He's like, do you? And I was like, I don't want to answer that, you know. I was just like trying to be like a, you know, goofball about it. And he was like, no, like I want to know, like what toys do you use? What toys do you like? And I didn't know what to do, so I just like turned it around on him.
Yeah, because also like, why are you asking that?
Yeah.
Are you asking for recommendations? That's a very different conversation.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And he also didn't ask for your like consent to have this conversation. He just is blatantly asking you. And he's not leading up to it like, oh well, out of curiosity, like I don't know. You have to have a certain level of rapport.
Yeah.
To be able to like have a conversation like that.
Yeah. And in the past,
or like, can I get your opinion?
Yeah, right.
Is this kind of conversation uncomfortable? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
And like this was before we had the podcast too. Now when people ask me for like sex advice, I'm like, this makes sense.
It. Yeah.
I'm like, sure, I fucking love talking
people
about
get excited. They're like, so I listen to your podcast and I'm like, fire away. What do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want to ask?
I love that shit. But like back then, especially because it was like he was in a position of power in that moment. He's a big dude, and it's just him and I in this gym. And I was very clearly uncomfortable, and he kept pushing. Before those two instances, there's a third one, but before those two instances, he had told me that he teaches group classes at another gym, and he had gotten reported there for he said that he was helping adjust like how a woman was standing, and it made her uncomfortable, and she reported him. And I was like, in the moment, I was like, oh, that kind of sucks, you know, because it's like that's before he started creeping me out. And I was like, oh, you know, like were you able to explain why, like because you were like helping her form or you know, like all these reasons. He was just like, no, she's just like one of those. And now looking back on it, I'm like, no, he was definitely doing some creep shit.
She's not one of those.
You're one of those.
You're one of those.
So the final straw on why I stopped going to him was I still had like 6 workouts in my...
Even though it already happened. I don't know. I'm nervous about it. It's like I'm watching a movie and I'm like, no,
it's coming. Yeah, I know. It's like a jump scare is about to happen. I still had like 6 workouts in my package. They were like $100 a session. So I like lost $600 on this. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Because I just like didn't want to go back. Oh. But he was out of nowhere. Literally there was nothing leading up to this conversation. He goes, if you could have a threesome with any 2 celebrities, who would it be? And I was like, okay, this is kind of a fun question. Whatever. Mm-hmm. So I listed LeBron James first. And he was like, oh, he would split you open. And I was like, ha ha ha. He's like, I could just tell that you're really tight.
Fuck that.
Mm-hmm. And I was like,
oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the moment, I mean, I knew it was fucked up. And I talked to my therapist about it in the moment. And she was like, are you going to report that to his boss?
Yeah.
And I felt so like... This is like another thing of like feeling like it was my fault because like we had this rapport and we were bros and like I made him comfortable to like talk like that around me. And it's like, no, that's like never okay. If one of my very, very close guy friends said, you look really tight, I would be like, ew, just don't.
If any person said that to me that was not someone I was in a monogamous relationship with and we were having like a conversation.
Yeah.
I would smack them in the mouth.
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
That is disgusting.
I met his girlfriend like a few sessions before that last instance, and she looked...
The audacity. Where does this man keep all of it? I would love to know.
I don't know.
Holy fuck, Amelia.
Yeah, she came into the gym and she was very untrusting of me, and I was like, you could just tell she was like side-eyeing me, and I'm like, girl, I'm not the one you need to worry about. Clearly. So he would like, after I stopped going, I like canceled one of my sessions, and then he was like, do you want to reschedule? And then I just never texted him back. The owner of that gym, that was before the pandemic, the owner of that gym still emails me like, hey, you gonna come back? Because it was like a little community, you know? So it was like, I was scared to report it because I was like, he's gonna know that it came from me. But then maybe he won't. Maybe he's done this to like everybody that he trains, but I don't know.
If he has been, I mean, if he did it to you, he's definitely done it to other people.
And the fact that
he even said like someone else reported him.
Right. I was just about to say, it's like the reason that he told me that story was so that like I would be on his side and know that like when he does this shit, he doesn't mean it in a bad way, you know? And it's like, well, there's kind of no excuse for talking to somebody like that. And then it made everything really creepy. Like I would think back on like when he would be like adjusting my posture, and like it would be like a little too...
Yeah, he's like getting off to it probably.
Yeah, and like it would be like over the top. It would be like too much, but I would be like, I guess he just has to do this. This is his job.
Well, I predominantly see that one trainer, but I've seen multiple trainers at that gym, and all of them are so respectful. Like they make it a point to like the only time they touch you is to like if you're gonna die to save your life, or to like kind of initiate where that muscle group is. They barely touch you. They're just like,
yep. Yeah. he would grab my like waist when I was like deadlifting. No. Yeah, and shit like that, and I'd be like, okay, he just wants me to bend at my waist. I didn't think anything of it. And then after this whole thing, I like everything started like flooding back. I was like, holy shit, there's been so much inappropriate shit that's happened.
You're trying to think of like if it's your fault. And like I said, it is never a victim's fault.
Nope. And it's so easy. And I mean, like, this is a perfect example. I was like, well, like, we were close, and I made him feel like he was comfortable with me, and like, da-da-da-da-da. It's like, nope. Never okay. It is never your fault. There's never an excuse. Especially because I made him know for sure that I was uncomfortable in those situations, and he just like kept going. It was a really fucked up situation where he was in the position of power, being an instructor of mine.
He's probably clearly getting off on making you uncomfortable and taking away your position, like taking away your autonomy and your power in the situation.
Yep.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I know.
I can't blame you for like not wanting to work out.
I know. It's like, it's such an excuse for me where I'm like, well, last time I got a gym, but it's like after that I was just like, I don't really want to work out.
It gave you the ick.
Yeah. I'm like, I think I'm good. And now I'm like, one of my friends texted me and was like, do you want to go to like a yoga class on Saturday? I'm like, you heathen.
Trying to get me to fuck out of here.
And I texted this back to her. I'm like, you heathen, trying to get me to be active. And I was like, why am I so activity adverse when I like used to spend so much time at the gym? Like I used to spend like all of my paycheck when I was still living at home on gym memberships and like gym clothes and like shoes that I could lift in. And it's like weird to think back on that now.
I didn't even know that about you.
I still have my lifting shoes.
Oh, I didn't even know there were shoes for lifting.
Yeah,
I just show up in my shoes that I think are cute.
Hell yeah.
There's only one pair that
You'll see some dudes at the gym like deadlifting either barefoot or in Converse because like being flat on the ground is better for your posture and better for your body. Yep, fun fact. Anyway, so that's your body fact of the week.
Amelia is like low-key a Hulk over here.
I had no idea. I know, I really need to get back into it.
She's a runner, she's a tricep.
That's the reason. That's the reason that I stopped. There's no excuse for me to still not be working out. But I'm surprised I had never told you that story. It was so fucked up. I'll just show you a picture of this guy. Like, looking back on him now, I'm like, what? He looked, I mean, you should never judge a book by its cover, but like and maybe it's because he's now clouded in my mind. He's just like he's just kind of like he looks like a bully in a cartoon.
Like Roger.
Yeah.
I bet he has that haircut.
Yep.
That fuckboy Roger haircut. I honestly, if he's not at that gym, and even if he was, I'm still going to encourage you to
report it.
Yeah.
I really should.
Or say like, the reason I stopped coming is because this trainer said this to me.
No, you're right. I really should.
Yeah.
Because like I truly get emails from that guy once a week. Just like, hi, come back. Because he's like so passionate about his gym. And I'm like, fuck, he should like really know these people that he's employed. I should see if he still works there. And regardless, you're right. I should report it because I'm sure that they know his current employer.
Well, and think of the other people that you're looking out for as well. But if you ever want an introduction to working out again, I get passes.
I should really consider it, especially because like I
get 2 guest passes.
Feel like my mental health is starting to slip since I don't move all day.
And you know from my experience that they're not going to be inappropriate.
That's true. That's very, very true. Yeah, I need to start off slow.
Sometimes there's a dog there. His name's Winston.
Say less. I'm there.
And he is a French bulldog.
That's the best name for a French bulldog.
He follows me into the back.
Winston.
I get him all riled up though. I'm like, I come in and I'm like, hi, and then he's like, where are you going?
Oh, I love dogs.
He's a good dog. He's a good boy. But I think
the whole thing was a sex fact of the week.
Yeah.
Consent fact of the week.
Consent facts
of the month.
Yeah, this is going to be the only episode that we do about sexual assault this month. It's very hard to talk about. It's very hard to listen to. And we tried to be lighthearted about some of the things that we talked about, but it is really fucking hard to talk about. And it, like I said, hard to listen to. So
we fucked up our intro 3 times because I was so
nerve-wracking.
I almost knocked over like so much shit trying to get to my seat because it's just like it's scary to talk about, but it's so important that we do. I encourage y'all to listen to last year's 2 episodes. I think that there's a lot of really good information in there too.
Every time we talk about this, it's kind of building off of those 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So definitely give them a listen if this is something that you want to learn more about and speak more passionately about. And we'll be back with our usual bullshit next week.
Y'all, I got some updates for you. So.
Oh God, they're so juicy, you guys. I
was like,
while Amelia was in the bathroom, when we took a little break, I was texting Mr. Liz and I was like, I have some mild Amelia tea for you. Because I just can't keep it to myself.
So next week.
It's so exciting.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
So anyway.
We'll be back to our debauchery.
And what else did we say?
Oh, and just as a reminder, for the entire month of April, if you are purchasing Consent is My Kink gear, we are going to be donating all of the proceeds to that to Rain, just like last year. And then it's going to be on more inclusive items. Thankfully, because we don't have control over what merchandise we can put our designs on, so they got the message loud and clear, and so did we. So we're really excited to be able to have some better sizing, because those crop tops were made for babies last year. If I'm being honest,
they were fucking ridiculous. They were tiny, teeny tiny.
Oh my God,
the ones
miniature.
Now are on organic cotton.
Ooh.
Fun fact. And they go from extra small to extra large. Obviously, we would love to be able to include way more sizes than that.
Yeah,
but
we wanted to do the ones that I think there are some 2X and 3X, but it doesn't allow for certain types of design. So that's why we're a little limited. But we're always looking for ways to improve and change our shop. But our options are limited. So thanks for hanging in there with us too while we work our shop out. And speaking of, we're going to be having more merch launch in May. We're so fucking excited.
We got our final designs back, and
you're gonna lose your shit. Yeah,
they're so fucking cool.
We made it. We had all of this in mind for a hot girl summer. So all of y'all are gonna have a hot girl summer with this next round of merch that comes out.
Buy so much of our own merch.
Me too.
I'm so fucking excited.
I'm going to be very selfish and just make whatever I want.
Yeah, true. But I mean, you have good taste.
Oh, thank you.
No, I mean, you know that I think that. So whatever you would wear, I'm sure our listeners would love to wear as well. I'm so excited to put it on shit.
So follow us on
You gonna do it?
I'm gonna do it.
Yay.
You can follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at the Holy Hour.
I'm gonna be you during this.
And you can email us at hoelyhourpodcast@gmail.com. And Amelia Sampson on all platforms at Amelia Sampson. I am Liz T Ball on Twitter, and then on Instagram and TikTok I'm Liz Ball So Hard.
Well done.
And that's it.
Join our Discord.
Yeah, join our Discord. They're watching Big Hero 6 tonight.
Oh, fuck yeah. Also join our Patreon, ad-free and early access to our episodes. Eventually we're gonna have more fun stuff for y'all in there. We were talking before we started recording about the type of stuff we want to do.
Yeah, we really want to have like an advice shit talk episode with Mr. Liz, because he does give really good advice, and it's so funny watching his raw reactions to stuff, and he's like, whoa. I'm trying to convince him to do Patreon episodes, because I'm sure all of you can tell I am the outgoing one. He's my little introvert.
I love that.
Yeah. So hopefully we can get my little introvert to do some little podcast episodes.
I would love nothing more.
Give dating advice.
I would love nothing more.
It'd be so fun. But
so anyway, well, we love
you, our children. Oh, there she goes.